Greetings to all the lovely ladies and gentlemen out there. I'm your host, the ProGent, and it's Halloween. You see what I did there? Huh? Now, to celebrate this holiday, I feel the need to go to some distant location and party with some classic monsters. But what place could you find people like the Wolfman, the Mummy, Frankenstein's monster, some sort of sea monster, and tons of spooky, scary skeletons? Well, since Hotel Transylvania isn't an anime, it's disqualified, and that leaves me with the choice I'd pick above it regardless. It's a horrible night for a curse, but a perfect night for Castlevania. Initially released on the Famicom in 1986 and brought west a year later, Castlevania was an instant classic and became one of Konami's strongest contenders in the market. In the years to come, Castlevania would get several sequels before a gameplay shift nearly a decade after the series first launched would drive its popularity even further through the roof with PlayStation's Symphony of the Night. The 20 years following would see Konami continue to support the Castlevania franchise with a slew of great games until the late 2000s, when their focus shifted drastically towards pachinko machines. For more information on Konami, I refer you to about half of the internet at this point. Anyway, it sucks, to the point where the best hope for the franchise is probably the spiritual successor kickstarted by Castlevania Symphony of the Night's founding father, Iga. Please let Bloodstained be good. Please. But let's take a moment away from talking about the Castlevania games to talk a little bit about the nearly decade-long attempt to make an adaptation of Castlevania for the big screen. Rumors ran rampant as far back as 2005 that Castlevania would be made into a film, and for years to come the speculation would circulate on the internet. I in particular remember my excitement at the prospect that one of my favorite series would get a big screen adaptation. Nothing came of the rumor for years, until 2015 when Netflix gained control of the rights. For the next 2 years, excitement grew among the Castlevania fanbase as to what the series would be about. And when we learned it would be based on the third game of the series, Dracula's Curse, we knew it had a chance. Now, I won't deny that I was a little disappointed in the amount we were given of the series. 4 short episodes wasn't nearly enough to quench my bloody thirst for a full Castlevania series. But we're thankfully going to be graced with a second season very soon, and a third is already in the works as well. So for today, I'll be talking about that first short season. Our story properly opens in Wallachia, where a young woman named Lisa is seeking the scientific knowledge held by the vampire known as Vlad Tepes, Dracula, as she wishes to become a doctor. Impressed with not only her desire to learn, but her courage to approach him, he takes her in. While he teaches her advanced science, she teaches him the beauties of the human world he has long cast aside, and the two fall in love, and life couldn't be better. Right. Cut to 20 years in the future, and Lisa is being persecuted as a witch. She is quickly burned at the stake, and Dracula in his devastated rage condemns the people of Wallachia to death in a year's time. Making good on his word, a year passes and Dracula begins his assault on the country with an army of demons which hastily overwhelm any and all obstacles and armies. The common folk choose to blame the nobility for all the bloodshed, with one in particular being targeted, the House of Belmont. We're then treated to a several-minute conversation about goat fucking. I'm just gonna let that sink in for a second more. Now that the doom and gloom of Dracula's backstory of hatred for humankind has been explored, our focus shifts to our main character, Trevor Belmont. Trevor is the last of the Belmonts, who were all excommunicated from the church and their lands taken from them for protecting the people of Wallachia. This has obviously left Trevor somewhat bitter, so he wanders the countryside and drinks his days away. This is where the show starts to give us some more comedy, and it's fantastic. Trevor ends up coming into a city under siege by Dracula's forces, which the church is blaming on a group of mages known as the Speakers. After some confrontation with some asshole priests, Trevor finds himself helping the Speakers trying to escape the city. But not before going after the elder of the Speaker's granddaughter, who had gone to seek a legendary hero to combat Dracula. Begrudgingly, Trevor ventures down where the elder's granddaughter went in search of the hero known as the Sleeping Soldier, where we finally get some awesome action with a giant Cyclops. The combat is executed so spectacularly and feels exactly like what I wanted out of the series, and it really gets to show off what makes Castlevania awesome. With the Cyclops defeated and its curse lifted, the elder's granddaughter, who we learn is named Sypha, is freed. Soon after Trevor returns Sypha to her grandfather and the rest of the Speakers, the church calls upon Trevor. The bishop leading this church is the same who condemned Dracula's wife to burn, and he intends to incite a mob to kill the Speakers, but offers Trevor clemency in exchange for Trevor's departure from the city. Obviously, he declines and chooses to aid the Speakers. With the night swiftly approaching, Dracula's forces swoop in, killing the bishop and beginning their destruction. Trevor mounts a defense against the forces of darkness with the help of the people, who are finally seeing that it was the church's actions that led to this curse upon them. With the assistance of Sypha, who reveals herself to be a particularly powerful magus, they are able to hold back the demons. During the siege, the ground beneath them crumbles, revealing the chamber of the Sleeping Soldier, who is revealed to be Dracula's Dhampir's son, Alucard. Following a brief confrontation with Trevor and Sypha, he agrees to assist them in defeating his father. And this is where Season 1 ends, leaving us on a cliffhanger and with a lot of questions. I'm excited to see what the future seasons bring. I am, however, not without my gripes. I'll sing the praises I have in a moment, but first I want to bring attention to one of the biggest problems I have with this series. The complete and utter lack of the Castlevania soundtrack is a glaring issue to me. One of the biggest things about this series as a whole is how phenomenal and memorable the soundtrack is. The music you're hearing now is from the games, and I suspect that even if you're not a Castlevania fan, you've recognized some of the iconic songs that I've used. It's a shame that the series didn't take advantage of this. I'd have loved to hear their take on Vampire Killer, for example, and it would have been great to see some of the action synced to some of these tracks. On top of that, there's a distinct lack of variety in the monsters present. This one will most likely be changed soon enough, but the only monsters we're treated to are the Cyclops, which was awesome, and these demons we see throughout the whole rest of the series. I expect a lot from the second season to get more from the games than we were given. Those issues aside, I really did enjoy Season 1 of Castlevania. There's a lot of high notes in the visual presentation, but what sticks with me the most is the humor. Castlevania is a pretty dark and serious franchise, and the games aren't particularly noted for being funny. Well, not intentionally funny. Despite this, the anime manages to inject quite a bit of humor into the gothic atmosphere, while still respecting the source material. A lot of this comes down to the excellent performances of the cast, particularly Richard Armitage's Trevor, whose one-liners are possibly the best thing in the whole series, as well as Graham McTavish, who delivers perfection into the role of Dracula. Between the humor and the action, the first season of Netflix's Castlevania is a strong start to an adaptation fans have wanted for decades. Here's hoping future seasons are just as strong. And would it kill you to get some bloody tears in there? I've been the Professional Gentleman, and happy Halloween. You know, considering that it's the Halloween episode, I should probably sneak in some sort of a jump scare. Nah. Thanks for watching. As always, a thank you to Andy Lita for keeping me looking so fine. Check out his work in the description below. If you enjoyed the show, please click on that thumbs up over there. It helps us out a lot. If you've got suggestions for something I can review in the future, feel free to leave it in the comments below. And of course, subscribe to my channel for future content.
Love ya, boy.